And God had chose. Hey family, Rosh and Abi, time to wake up.
Time to wake up.
Abi, y'all, we are talking about this video that's gone viral across the internet where this pastor who was preaching, he almost got shot in church from somebody just walked in the church.
Yes.
How they explained it. It's just incredible.
My goodness.
It's just incredible.
Walked in.
Right.
Yes.
Walked in.
Not even a member or anything.
Right. And the shocking thing, and we say this all the time too, that when it's not your time, it's not your time. It doesn't matter.
That is true.
There's nothing that Satan can do. It's nothing that the enemy can do. When Yah says it's not your time, it is not your time.
Very true.
I mean, the guy had a clear shot at the pastor.
Yes.
And the gun jammed.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm sure you all have seen this already across the internet, but what a lot of people haven't seen is the pastor was interviewed about how this all happened, and he gave his thoughts on it. And this is what we want to talk about. We want to give our angle on that part, that things that he said. And what we found interesting was how the pastor wasn't so much aware of how this gentleman was being demonically possessed. That's what we found interesting. He called it the guy had a mental issue.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And this was even after the guy told him that he had voices in his head that was telling him to that was telling him to shoot a pastor. He actually confessed that. So voices in the head telling you to go in to kill someone, that is obviously demonic entities. This is what the fellow was dealing with. And he told it to the pastor. And it was just shocking to me that as he told it to the pastor still was like trying not to touch on it. It was more of, we prayed for him. And then he said he asked the police to sit down in the cop car with him to have a conversation with him. He went in the cop car to have a conversation, but it was still no awareness of the demons that was operating in the man. And I will say this, maybe he did have awareness, but he didn't have the faith to believe that he can cast out those demons. So he just left it alone and didn't address the issue. But he was the actual pastor of the church, running a congregation. And so we were so shocked to see this transpire.
Absolutely. And the interesting thing also, I think I seen this earlier today, is that same guy who tried to kill him, he was convicted of shooting someone else before he went to the church. He did another crime before he went to the church and tried to kill the pastor. So that was very interesting. And like you said, Abiyah, that the pastor was not aware of the demonic forces operating inside this man. It goes back to the bigger picture of what's going on within these churches, that they are not seeing how a lot of these things are spiritual.
Right.
The church has become so lukewarm that they can't identify spiritual attacks.
Right.
They can't identify demonic forces.
Very true.
Mm-hmm.
And then the man, he stated that the guy told him, you just ducked the taco.
Wow.
And he was like, oh, and I was trying to understand what that meant. And then I finally realized he was saying, I ducked a bullet.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, but it's familiar spirits. He's telling you. Because just you think about it. People don't communicate in that way.
Exactly.
Normal people don't communicate in that way.
Exactly.
When you're telling somebody you just ducked the taco, that is familiar spirits. Mm-hmm. And we're just wondering, why is it that we're not seeing a lot of this in the churches with the people, like with deliverance ministries, and casting out these demons. Somebody in that church, because it was more than one, it was a whole congregation of people. So somebody in that church should have been able to cast out those demons
Right.
or even attempted to.
Right.
You didn't hear anybody address it. It was not, it was like
Right.
he
It
didn't
was
even
never
say he was
mentioned.
dealing with demons.
Exactly. Exactly. It's just interesting. So we want to play the clip and play the pastor's response to how this all played out. So we want to hear you all's take on it and tell us what you think. Is the church aware of the demonic forces, of the spiritual aspects of what's going on in the world, or is the church just completely blind up to the things that is happening? You know, we talk about that old time religion, the old time church where they recognize this stuff. But the
Right.
church has become so lukewarm that they don't address sin, that we talked about this on our ministry channel, that this come as you are, once saved, always saved. This doctrine is hurting people.
Right. Right. And I want to say something before we play it. We mentioned this before on our other channel, on the Way TV. We mentioned this before about a situation where we encountered a lady who was being attacked by demons, and we heard her speaking demon language.
Right.
But when that happened, we weren't where we are today. We was, because when you're dealing with demons, demonic forces, then you have to be tactical about that.
Yes.
You can't just jump right into it if you don't know what you're doing. And so when that happened with us, we called 911, but we asked for an ambulance.
Right.
And so they sent the ambulance and they sent a cop as well.
Right.
But she was falling all over in the street and hurting herself. And so we figured she needed to go to the hospital.
Right.
Because we could see she was all bruised up. So this is why we did it. But at the same time, where we were in our mind, and I'm gonna just be honest, we didn't feel ready for it. We was not prepared. And that was a faith issue as well,
Right.
because we never cast out demons before.
Right.
And so this is why we're able to ask these questions. What was going on in the church? And
Right.
with the actual pastor, a man who is in charge of a whole congregation.
Right.
How was none of them able to decipher that these were demons and say, hey, let me cast it out?
Right. Yep, that's all true. So let's play this clip, and we want to get our viewers' take on it, what they think about what's going on, what they saw in the pastor's response, and was he accurate? Did he handle this situation right? So tell us what you think.
It was just another, Sunday service. We was really just having a good time in service. The praise and worship was wonderful, excellent. And I seen this guy while we were in the midst of praise and worship. He came into church, then he left the church. And he came into church and he left. And I didn't think it was nothing strange because I was so used to people would come in and they would hear the music and they would listen to the music and they would leave out. And so it didn't, take me by surprise, him coming in and out. But then all of a sudden, and also my brother had told me that he was expecting a guest to come in the building. And so I thought that was my brother's guest. And at one point I see him, he's sitting in the back before I come up and speak. And then he comes from the back and he moves all the way up to the front of the congregation. And he was actually sitting on my left-hand side. And I thought he was going to keep going by me because my brother, as you see in the video, he was at the piano. He was, on my right-hand side, and I thought he was his friend, so I thought he was going to walk over to my brother. But when he stopped in the middle of the pulpit and he pulled the gun out, I didn't know what to think. It would just react. I had a chance to speak with him, and also, I'm at this point in the interview, I get to speak from hindsight, and I understand what have taken place prior to him coming to the church. There was an altercation at a house prior. And this is all presumption because they haven't finished the court case, and I don't want to say anyone's guilty or before they have a chance to go through what happened. But truly, he was dealing with a situation, and when he came to the church, that situation was still active in his mind. And so, leaving one scene and coming down to the church and being, and then committing to what he committed to here, it was like he was someone. I had a chance to talk to him. I seen, he had mental illness, but at the same token, it was like, it was from some type of drug intake. And I'm no specialist, but you can tell these kids who are he wasn't there. It was like it was him and his
Yeah.
body, but it was not him there. Well, on a spiritual perspective, to be honest with you, I'm totally grateful because I understand the protection of God and the protection of God being with me, and this is nothing less than a miracle. Like I say, he left one scene and he came to another scene, and I really didn't fully answer your last question. When I asked him why did he do it, he said that there were spirits inside of his mind telling him
Mm.
to go shoot the pastor. And so knowing that and knowing that one thing that he said to me is basically this was the language that he used that I never heard before. But he said, "Today you ducked a taco," and I'm like, "What did that mean? I ducked a taco?" But I understood he was saying, I was shooting at your head and I missed you, and he was letting me know that he was told to come in here and shoot the pastor. And then I asked him, well, why did he? I don't know why I did it, and he actually apologized to me. But I know
Really?
it was the grace of God, and I know it was a miracle because the gun jammed, and you could see when the officer came in and he emptied the clip of the gun and he removed the bullet. The bullet was still in the chamber, and the bullet had
Mm.
markings of it getting jammed in there. And I don't like you can't hear no shooting, but if you listen to the video closely, you can actually hear him clicking the gun. Yes, well, to be honest with you, when I held him down for 20 minutes. I had the time to actually speak with him, minister him. But while I was holding him, there was members who were praying for him, and at the same token, I was having a chance to talk with him. But then later, when he was in the car, I had a chance to go out to the police car, and for 10 minutes, the officer allowed me to talk with him. And I talked it to him, and I let him know my name is Glenn Germany. I want you to remember that, and I want you to know that I forgive you, and I wanted to let him know I love him. I told him that please, whatever it is that he needs while he's in there, get in touch with me. We'll help him as much as we can possibly help him. And that's just doing what we're supposed to do, loving people.